Hello everyone. Today I am going to show you how you can use modules in your CodeIgniter projects. So for that, first we need to install the CodeIgniter and let's do that here. So what I have done is I have right now created a folder inside my htdocs. To install the CodeIgniter, we need a composer first. So composer, I'm not going to show the composer how you can install the composer. You can just go to the search for the composer in Google and you can just download the exe file if you are using in Windows, and they have the Mac support also, so you can just go there. Simple command which is composer create project CodeIgniter 4 then app starter. So app starter is kind of repository which holds a complete application for the CodeIgniter, and after that you need to mention the name of the folder where you want to install it. So for this test, I'm just going to use by default project. So the command is once again create project CodeIgniter 4 / app starter project root. Let me zoom it a little bit so you can just see it. And in the back window, you can see how it will install. And so for CodeIgniter 4, you need PHP 8 version. So make sure you have installed PHP 8. Okay, now our CodeIgniter is installed. So I'm just going to minimize this window. We don't need it. And here you can see we have project root. So inside project root, we have all the files which is required by CodeIgniter. And in this one, all these are like main application files, but public one is this index file which you will run when you are browsing your application. So let me show you after this how it will. You can see I'm just browsing localhost CodeIgniter 4 because this is the first folder which I installed my project root, and inside project root is this. These are all the CodeIgniter files and the public. So once you go to the public, you can see your CodeIgniter is installed and is running properly. Okay, now CodeIgniter is installed, working properly, and we need to do settings for the modules. So let's do it. I'm going to minimize this, and inside app, this is the main folder where we need to work on. So what we're going to do is we will create a folder modules. So what will happen inside modules is we will create more folders based on our sections which we want to work on. Like I mentioned, for backend we need a separate section, for frontend we need a separate section. So I'm going to divide my application accordingly. So let's create one section for backend and one section for frontend, or I'm going to call it home. Right. So now what we need to do is we need to use controller views and models folder inside that. So I'm not going to copy the model folder, but yes, we need that if we are doing the database connectivity or calling the database to our operation. But yes, right now I'm just showing you how you can create the modules. So we'll just use controller and view because we are not connecting the database as of now. So controllers and views, we need these two folders. So right now what we do is I'm just going to copy these both here and inside the backend. Now this one is fine, we don't need error, welcome message. It's like for our front end, I am going to rename it home message. And controller, base controller, we don't need base controller, that's the default which is for the coordinator. Need one for the home, so I'm going to keep home here. Some settings we need to change and we will do it later on. So now for the backend message and controller, we don't need the controller. And so this is our inside the backend. But there's one thing in this structure what I'm creating right now. Inside the backend, we have just one view and one controller. But inside backend, if you're working on a website, it's easy to manage things if you have different sections of the backend also. Like you're going to do some settings for your website. You are going to manage your product. You are going to manage your users. For that, what we need is we need separate sections. To do that, what we can do is we can create section folder here, like dashboard. Dashboard is once admin login to the system, this is a file or the default which will be visible. Then we can change it to the others also. New folder like products, new folder like users. And to do that, if you want to make it work, you need to copy these inside that folder. So I have copied my controller and view inside backend 3 sections. So you can call it a subsection of the backend. Same way for the home. We can use the subsection of home also. We can use maybe if you want to use user account. It is here. I'll copy this thing. Let me show you both separately so it will be easy to understand how you want to use different. Like inside this home, we are just keeping one control and view and not using subsection, but yes, inside the backend, we are using the subsection. So in the backend, I will just show you how you can call this controller and this view, which is backend message. And in the front end, for the front end, I will just show you how you can call these controllers and these views. So as I mentioned, it's easy to manage things when you are using modules. And when you are using modules, you can call these modules using the routes also. So for that, for routes, you can use this config. Anything in here you can call it, but right now I'm just going with the route sections only. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one config folder first. Okay. And inside that, I'm going to use route. So these are our routes. So this one is one route which we can use, and this route is for anything which is inside this module section. Okay, and in the backend we will use one more. So if you want to use like separate routes for dashboard, separate route for product, separate route for users, you can do that by placing this config here. Okay, right now I'm just going to show you how we can call it from this inside the backend and the routes of that one. So let's do it first with this one. Open this file. Once you open this file, you can see your routes are like this. So this one is the default route which we are using. But for our module section, we need to change it. We need to tell coordinator that okay, don't use this one, don't use like this because we are using sections, so we are managing that. So what we can do for that is in the coordinator there is a feature to group the rows. So we use group for that, and inside that you can call your rows which you want to use it. But again, this is a default which we use, but you need to do the settings. You need to tell what group you are using. So for that, we are going to use it like this for group, and we give the namespace, we give the function is rows. So this is a proper code structure which you need to follow. So here in the group, this is a naming, what name you want to give. So if like you just want to open your URL directory, then you don't need to name anything. Otherwise, you can name it like backend, which we will use for the backend folder. Right now, it's our home folder. I'm not going to use in the home. I will use the blank and we'll give namespace. So in the namespace, I will tell okay where to find the controller for this. For that, we need to use add modules slash home slash. Now, if once coordinator will load this file, it will check for this controller, and after that it will find out the slash and it will just go to the home controller and the index file. So inside the home controller is this one. It will go here and it will call for the index and it will go for the view message or view. Now, as you know, we have changed the view. So this is the default view, but in our case, the new view is inside modules, and we have home, and we have views, and inside that we have welcome message, or we have home message, not welcome message. So I'm just going to do is rename it to home. Now this is controller which is inside our home modules. So what we need to do is we need to use the namespace of this controller properly. Right now it's a default namespace. So we will rename it to the views app controller because controller is the by default coordinator use. So we are going to use that controller, so it loads all the classes and everything for that. And for our controller which we just created, we will use the namespace modules slash home slash. And in section, because we are extending the base, we are extending the base controller. So we will use it like this. So we will use first base controller, and after that we will just extend the class. So this is the settings for our home controller. Check if everything is correct. Looks good. Use is good. Home controller is good. Route is also good. So this route is for our home. Now we need to use this route which is for our backend. Because we are using our backend three sections, or you can say three subsections. We need to call this routes, use them. So again, we will open it and we will change it. I'm not going to use it because we need to do some settings of our default route also. But I'm just right now creating the route for our module sections. Routes, that is in curve. We are going to use namespace, function, so for the backend, we're using our controller, which is inside app, modules, backend. First, let's open for the dashboard. I'm going to call the dashboard. And as I'm using the dashboard, so it will be a separate URL, not the main public one. So for that, I'm going to use backend. So the name will be the backend, and once it's called, it will use space this dashboard controller, and inside that it will go and look for dashboard control. So let's give dashboard controller. And inside that we will call our index file. So now go to the dashboard controller, backend, dashboard controller. I'm just going to rename because backend is outside, so I'm just going to rename it the dashboard controller. In the view, I'm going to use the dashboard message. So because dashboard message, so inside this controller we are going to use dashboard message. Now, because we changed the naming and everything inside this, we need to change our settings for this controller. So we are going to use base controller. So again, to use it like this, I need to give namespace for my current one. Now, because our routes call for dashboard controller and inside that it will look for index, we need to change class name here to the dashboard controller, which is extends this controller, which we are calling from here. Right? So inside that, once index page will be called, it will return view, which is dashboard message. But again, we have changed the path. So we will change the path, which is modules slash backend slash dashboard slash views, and inside that dashboard message. So this will be our view, which will load once we will call backend. Once we call this backend, it will load dashboard controller. Inside dashboard controller, it will call index, and it will load this view, which is dashboard message. And I'm just going to cross check once again if my view is right. So right now, I'm just going to show once again this public is working fine, and So this will be, we are going to call. Right now it's not working, and this topic it's calling from default settings. So it's not what we want. We want to call home. And how we will find that we are calling the correct one? We will change the heading for this. So let's do quickly one thing. Welcome to the CodeIgniter use section. I'm going to change this heading so now that I'm on the right place. So right now our settings are done for the creation of modules, but now we need to call these modules. So our CodeIgniter recognize where we need to check the modules. So for that we need to do some settings, and that will be inside our config. Inside our config, first few settings which we need to do is app. Once you open app, base URL, you can check the base URL is 880. So I'm just going to change my base URL to this. So it will help you to make all the URL, base URLs everywhere in your application, and you don't need to write this config path. And once you move to your server, online server, then it will work fine after that. So base URL, I have changed this base URL like this. Other than that, you can do no changes. Now I'm just going to close it. Now the next change which we need to do is on config, which is auto load. Once you auto load, so in auto load you need to tell that okay, we are using modules. So CodeIgniter need to load modules path. So how we do tell the path, and that we can do is inside this section on line 43 or by default. So namespace we already have add path, and we will use one namespace for modules, and we need one more space for the config because we changed the config folder. We have put the config folder where we are calling the routes. So we will tell CodeIgniter okay, for config use my new folder path config use app path modules. Now this config autoload file you can use to load other things like helpers, which you can use to load the form. Like in here, I can just simply use it like this. It's something which is not required in our case right now, so I'm not going to change it, but as it's useful, you can not load this thing. Now the next part is, which we need to change is our routes. So this is our by default settings for the routes. What we need to tell is here to the CodeIgniter, okay, you need to use our config. So in our config inside the modules, you have seen we created two config folders. One is on the main modules and one is inside the sections. So we will load all these folders, check for our route file if any of that section contain any route, and we will load that one and use it. And how we can do that one is just simply writing few things. So this one we don't need because we are loading the other files. So I'm just going to comment that one, and you can see So here now we're going to use few line of code. First, let's say module path, a variable we are going to pick, and we will tag it is app slash modules. So this is our modules which we have created. Inside that we have modules. So we will tell to scan directory, which directory we will use this directory to scan it. So for each modules as module. So each folder we will check if that contains any folder inside that or not. So first we will check if module is equal to folder or what. It's a root folder or something. Hit continue. If is directory, if our module path is a directory, then it will go inside and we will check for routes. So here we are checking if our folder, this directory, contain any file with name routes, or inside there is a config, and inside that config we have any route file or not. So we are just passing that path right now, and now we will check if there is any file. If file exists, so now we have changed our route file. So we'll check if our code is working fine, and you can already see here it's using our home section view, which is inside the modules. And to test it again, I'm going to do is view home message section. Just rename it. So it's here. So you can see we are using the front end with our section home. Now, second route which we use was the backend. So it's working, but it's giving error, unexpected use, expecting dollars inside the dashboard controller. So dash backend, dashboard controller, dashboard controller. So it's picking up the file, but it's just small issue. So it's giving error for the dashboard controller. It's not finding the dashboard controller. So the reason for that is spelling mistake here. We'll just fix this dashboard controller, and now we are going to run this. And you can see it worked properly. It's calling from the backend. View is this one, it's changed. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the heading backend view. Refresh it. So now our backend is backend view, our front end is module section view, and we are using our modules and not the by default views of our CodeIgniter. So now when you use modules, you can use different section like this, or you can use single section like this. And again, if you want to use like for the dashboard, we are calling this. And if you want to use product, so again, if you're using this controller inside different section, you need to use the proper path. For here, we are using module backend products controller. So inside products, we are using namespace products, and then for product controller. And again, we are using backend products view message. For message, and this is backend. So backend is calling just for the dashboard controller. And if you want to use different section, we will call it product. And we'll use it products. And inside that, oops, product controller. So let's see how it works, or if it works or not. Actually, it should work. So we have product view. So you can see you have created a group for the product, and you are calling everything inside that product section of the module. So you can use different routes here, whatever you want, get, post, request, everything, whatever you want to use, it's up to you. So once again, the main thing which we need to look is first create your modules, add the config routes inside that, okay, and then use autoload. Tell the code editor to load the modules path from here. And that's it. That's it. And you can use modules for your next application, which will be help you to scale more and also organize your content more efficiently, properly, and reusable also. So thank you very much. If you have any comments, just let me know in the comment section, or you can just connect with me. Details available in the descriptions. Thank you.